I'm a 9/11 survivor from the terrorist attacks in New York City. Both my home and my office were affected. As a result, I became interested in Islamic terrorism. But as time went on, I learned that the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, or the OIC, and other Islamist groups were working fastidiously to silence all criticism of Islam and ultimately to criminalize it. As difficult as it was to believe, years of research revealed the truth about the OIC's supremacist aspirations. I studiously examined the OIC's UN resolutions, Islamic blasphemy laws, Islamist efforts to protect Islam from so-called defamation, and the importance of free speech as a cornerstone freedom. I came to understand the critical role that free speech plays in protecting national security, religious freedom, and human rights. I gained a special awe for the uniqueness of America's First Amendment. Free speech in the West is increasingly under attack, most significantly from Islamic supremacist groups who protest so-called Islamophobic speech, whether it consists of gratuitous offense or truthful comments about Islamic terrorism, Islamic persecution of religious minorities, or human rights violations committed in the name of Islam. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation is the largest Islamic organization in the world. It's comprised of 56 UN member states, plus the Palestinian Authority. It's the most powerful voting bloc in the United Nations, and yet most people have never heard of it. Its long-term vision is the worldwide implementation of Sharia law, which favors Muslims over non-Muslims, men over women, denies basic human rights, and rejects both freedom of speech and freedom of religion. The OIC countries show no concern for the Jews, Christians, and other religious minorities who suffer egregious human rights violations and persecution in the OIC countries. Yet, using feel-good language, the OIC and other Islamist groups have worked hard to give the false impression that America is rife with anti-Muslim bigotry. By asserting that any insult or offense is Islamophobic and constitutes defamation of Islam, the OIC, through passage of its UN resolutions, has been able to convince some Western governments that all discussions of national security should dissociate Islam from terrorism, whether or not it's true. That is why the Obama administration has been insisting that the Islamic State is neither Islamic nor a state. Our administration refuses to acknowledge that numerous Islamic terrorist groups around the world are motivated by their religion, despite the fact that the jihadis themselves say they are. Yet, our State Department has been collaborating with the OIC to implement policies which will protect Islam from defamation by censoring the truth about Islamic terrorism and purging our national security lexicon from all mention of it. With increasing jihadi attacks around the globe, both stealth and violent, it's imperative that we be able to identify the enemy, its goals, tactics, and motivational ideology. Some people think that America will never lose her First Amendment freedoms, but freedom is the exception, it's not the rule. It can be lost gradually and incrementally, not always in a violent coup. As murderous attacks increase in response to speech offensive to jihadists, America is capitulating through self-censorship. In Europe, things are even worse, where numerous countries have hate speech laws that penalize citizens for expressing their views. America's forefathers died so that we can live in freedom. By prioritizing political correctness above principle, we place both our freedom and our national security at risk. If you want to pass the torch of freedom to future generations, all of you need to become informed. Toward that end, I wrote a monograph titled The Organization of Islamic Cooperation's Jihad on Free Speech. It's a primer intended to wake up the public on who the OIC is, what its goals are, and how it's deftly maneuvering to influence the UN, the West, and America, all to our own detriment. I do hope you'll buy the monograph and educate your family and friends. An informed citizenry is the best defense to freedom.